Hello, hello. Hi, gang. Here we go. It is Monday. It is the 11th of August. Summer flying by. I was thinking to myself, as I drove past my alma mater, high school, Central Bucks West, yesterday, and smelling the smells of fresh cut grass in early August. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder if football camp starts tomorrow, as in today. It probably does. It probably does. Because I think that they are 21 days away from the start of school. And how do I know that? I know that because at Nat's Pizzeria yesterday, also in Doylestown, they have a digital, Chuck Hall is smiling as I'm saying this. They have a digital countdown clock broken down into days and hours and minutes, maybe even seconds until school begins, which I think is really, really funny. Anyway, your Monday poll question today: should Ukraine reject any peace deal that does not require Russia to return all the territory it has seized since the 2022 invasion? And if your answer is yes, then I want to know what your plan is. Thank you to my friends in Shippensburg at Parks Casino. Get lucky in no time at Parks Casino in Shippensburg, located right in central Pennsylvania off exit 29 of Route 81. We're talking 45 minutes from Harrisburg. Parks Casino, my casino of choice, so close to Hagerstown, Maryland, and Martinsburg, West Virginia, and the nearby Pennsylvania towns of Chambersburg and Carlisle and Greencastle. Parks Casino Shippensburg, celebrating military veterans every Monday. That's today. So today, go to Parks Casino in Shippensburg, show your military ID, you'll get a free hot dog lunch with chips and a soda. And then tomorrow, it's the 50% golden discount. How great is that? The comedy series for the summer continues this Friday night. Chris Johnson from the Impractical Jokers comedy tour. Go mingle at Parks, listen to some comedy, have some laughs. Get in on all the action. Parks Casino Shippensburg, off Interstate 81. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Let me just backtrack a couple of days and briefly discuss some of the poll results since we were last together. On Friday, I asked, border agents disguised as employers made arrests at an LA Home Depot in Operation Trojan Horse. Do you approve or disapprove? 35,929 voted. 86.45% said they disapproved. I'm going to talk about this on radio today. Chief Greg Bovino, the chief border patrol agent of the El Centro sector in LA, was my guest on CNN on Saturday. I was thrilled to have him. And we had a really interesting exchange. Each got an opportunity, I think, to fairly make our points. But one of the things that transpired in the interview is that I used what we describe as a full screen, put it up on the television screen, and then read aloud. It was a quote from Peggy Noonan that I had shared here last week, and it was Peggy Noonan saying that it's cruel, paraphrasing, but the bottom line is that it's cruel to go after immigrants, migrants in their workplace. And she spoke of the virtue of work making you a part and parcel of a particular community, and rejects the idea that we're going to go into workplaces for these enforcement actions. I happen to agree with her sentiments, but I asked Greg Bovino, Chief Bovino, to respond. And what was interesting is he said to me, he said, do you know that at Home Depot, where we had Operation Trojan Horse, where they jumped out of the back of the Penske van, he said 30 to 40% of those that we apprehended had serious rap sheets. And my response was to say, okay, but what about the 70, 60, 70% who don't, who you're catching in that net? I don't care about the guys with the long rap sheets. I want them out of here also. But those who came via original sin, they overstayed their visa or they crossed the border illegally, and then got to work, have several years under their belt, are paying taxes, the short order cook in Jersey City. And by the way, today in the newsletter, another of those stories, it's a Philly story, about somebody that the community is rallying around saying, not this guy, he's a good guy. So that was the exchange that we had. Him saying a third or better are bad hombres. He didn't use that language. The president would. More on that, as I say, on today's radio program. Okay, Saturday then. Saturday, is the risk of violence a sufficient reason to not run for office? 39,438, not a huge vote, not a bad vote. I know it was an unusual question, but it came after I did a commentary reflective of having spoken a week ago today in Boston to the largest ever gathering of state legislators and looking at the data pertaining to political violence, and then asking the question, like, who's going to serve? So that's why I was asking, is the risk of violence a sufficient reason to not run for office? 56.18% said, yes, it is. And I agree with them. Yesterday's poll question, the Sunday poll question, who should be counted in the U.S. Census? Your choices, everyone or only citizens? 77.63% of us said everyone. Everyone is the requirement of Section 2, Article 1, I should say, Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution. Representatives shall be apportioned among the several states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state, excluding Indians not taxed. I think it's pretty straightforward. President Trump, however, sees it differently. He only wants to count citizens. I guess what I would point out about this, beyond the argument of if you don't count individuals and yet they're present, they are drawing on resources, and cities and states are going to get shortchanged. And that doesn't seem fair to those cities and states. The additional point, however, that I would make is one of, it's not just reapportionment that flows from the census data. Businesses rely on that data. Healthcare systems rely on that data. So it would be a monumental change if all of a sudden we only knew the number of citizens in a particular area. Law professor Michael McDonald, writing over the weekend in a piece that we had in the newsletter, the census of the U.S. population has many uses. Federal and state governments allocate money to communities based on their populations. Businesses use population forecasts to make decisions on where to expand. Law enforcement uses population counts to calculate crime rates and inform policing decisions. Health officials use the data to calculate disease rates to know where outbreaks occur to send help. The Monday poll question. Here we are. By the way, I'm holding for the benefit of those who are watching on YouTube. And if you're not watching on YouTube, you should be. Thank you for listening to the daily podcast concerning the poll question. But you can also watch me on YouTube, as many do. The New York Post is in my hand. Three's Company. Picture of Putin, Trump, and Zelensky, with the open question of, is Zelensky going to be a participant at the Friday meeting in Alaska? And as I speak to you in real time, we don't know the location in Alaska. We just know Alaska. President Trump and Russian President Putin scheduled to meet on Friday. The invitation marks the first time since 2007 that Putin has been invited to the U.S. outside of UN-related functions. It'll be the first meeting that he and Trump have had since 2018. And they are there to discuss the resolution of the war launched by Russia 3+ years ago, against Ukraine. And the question now becomes, okay, what is the land swap going to look like, if anything? And everybody's focused on what exactly should be necessary to bring about peace. And I'm asking you in the poll question, should Ukraine reject any peace deal that does not require Russia to return all the territory it has seized since the invasion? I get it. As a starting matter, of course they should. But when all is said and done, if peace is dependent upon Russia keeping some spoil of war, is it worth it? And if history is any guide, then the people who vote in my poll questions will say no. Make them give it all back. Of course, I want them to give it all back, and I want them to give back Crimea as well. But I don't think it's practical. I don't think it's practical that that's going to happen. And in the end, I think that Zelensky, of course, needs to be there. Trump can't make a decision without him. It will forever be seen as Trump having sold out to Putin. If Zelensky's not at the table, I want Russia to have to surrender everything. But if Ukraine is willing to go along with a peace deal where Russia doesn't give back what they initially seek, I'm okay with it. There's some Gallup polling that's really interesting that has just come out within the last couple of days on Ukraine. How reliable is it? I don't know. I mean, I have respect for Gallup, so I assume that it's pretty reliable. Most Ukrainians now favor ending the war with Russia through negotiations, as support for fighting until victory has dropped sharply. Here's the decline in those numbers. More than 3 years into the war, Ukrainian support for continuing to fight until victory has hit a new low. In Gallup's most recent poll of Ukraine conducted in early July, 69% say they favor a negotiated end to the war as soon as possible. That's compared with 24% who support continuing the fight until victory. It marks a nearly complete reversal from public opinion in 2022, when 73% favored Ukraine fighting until victory and 22% preferred that Ukraine seek a negotiated end as soon as possible. I mean, if I had the magic pen in my hand, Crimea would be surrendered. Everything gained in the last 3+ years would be surrendered, and Ukraine would be a member of NATO. I don't think that's happening. I don't think that's happening. So instead, some accommodation of Russia getting something, not everything, in return for a ceasefire, I think is the best the Ukrainians are going to do. And if not, then it's just going to be the slog of war is going to continue and continue and continue. And of course, I worry that in 5 years we'll be right back here again, unless there are some parameters that are put on Russia that they honor. There's a story, I'll close with this. There's a story on the front page today of Vladimir Putin's right-hand person. And I point this out, read it. It's page 1 above the fold in the print edition of the New York Times. I point it out because I think there's a tendency for us to think, well, when Putin's gone, things will change. But Medvedev doesn't seem too much different than Putin, and neither does the guy whose name I can't pronounce, who's on the front page of the Times today. I guess what I would say is this. The Russians have a bench. We have a bench. They have a bench. And we should not assume that this aggressive posture toward Ukraine ends when Putin is gone. I wish it were so simple. Have a wonderful day on this 11th of August, and please right now go vote on the poll question at Smerconish.com. Should Ukraine reject any peace deal that does not require Russia to return all the territory it has seized since the 2022 invasion? My heart says one thing, my head says another. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. Please like and subscribe, and set yourself up for notifications. See you, everybody.